Welcome to this new video. This time I want to expand on a topic that I have touched on many times, but I never dedicated some time to go deeper into it, and that is to understand vulnerabilities. If you follow my channel, you'll realize that I have created multiple videos of how to do vulnerability scanning, and we have installed different applications, different softwares, and we're able to run the scans and see vulnerabilities. Now, in this case, as you can see, I'm using Qualys Community Edition, which is another vulnerability scan that allows you to scan up to, I believe, 18 or 16 or maybe 31 IP addresses for free. I forget how many IP addresses, and it is cloud-based. But if you want to run vulnerabilities internal in your network, you just have to install a connector. And I'll create a video for that actually. I haven't created a video for Qualys. I've done videos for many other vulnerability scannings. So something that I want to show you here is like every time that you run a vulnerability scanning solution, that's gonna detect vulnerabilities based on CVEs, right? And the CVEs are maintained by the National Vulnerability Database, which is a project of NIST, which is National Institute of Science and Technology in the United States. So what happens is that in the past we have different vendors disclosing vulnerabilities and giving the vulnerabilities different score, and it was very confusing for different people because there was no standardization when it comes to addressing and reporting vulnerabilities. So the National Vulnerability Database was created to create some type of standardization for vulnerability notifications. Now, if you deal with vulnerability management or if you deal with penetration testing or network security, one of the things that you're going to be concerned about is how to manage vulnerabilities. And vulnerability management is more than just running a scan and detecting vulnerabilities. That's just simply vulnerability scanning, is not management. Vulnerability management comes into place when you have an approved process to manage the vulnerability, be it that you apply the patch and you fix the vulnerability, or you create a compensating control for that vulnerability if you cannot apply the patch, or you simply assume the risk because if the vulnerability is exploited, it's not going to cause the value of the exploitation is going to be less than the value of fixing the vulnerability. But what I want to show you this time around, though, and again, this is more for general knowledge, I should say, and it's a good thing to know. I don't really think that what I'm going to share with you now is 100% necessary for you to do your work, no matter what type of job you do. But it's good understanding how do vulnerabilities are like how does the score work? Because remember, when we go to the and identified any vulnerabilities, let me come, for instance, these vulnerabilities. I don't even know what this is, right? As you can see here, it has a score, a base score of 7.8. Now, if you only address vulnerabilities based on the base score, which is this, it is good that you're doing that, but it's not a real mature vulnerability management solution that you're implementing. But the going back to the point, how is this score calculated? Right? It's calculated based on this formula that you see here under right next to vector. So something to keep in mind is that vulnerability scores are from 0 to 10, and the 10 being the most critical, right? So if you have anything between zero point 0.1 and 3.9 is low. If you have anything, let me just do it right here in case you would like to see it. I'm kind of fancy now with this Wacom tablet. So, so vulnerabilities from zero point 0.1 to 3.9, those are low vulnerabilities, right? They don't mean much. I mean, like, it is things that, yes, it would be nice if you patch them, but it is very unlikely that your system is going to suffer if you don't. Then, if you have from 4.0 to 6.9, you have what is known as medium vulnerabilities, right? Now, for these vulnerabilities, you definitely want to keep them in your radar, especially when they are like 6.9 or 6.8. Again, depending on the system and depending on what's being affected. Then, when it comes to 7.0 to 8.9, those are high vulnerabilities, right? As you can see, that is what I have right here. It is a 7.8. So it is considered a high vulnerability, meaning that it could be exploited. And then when it comes to 9 to 10, these vulnerabilities are critical. So if there's something critical in your network or something is detected as critical, you have to act on that as soon as you can. Okay, so why am I bringing this over? Because when it comes to vulnerabilities, let me go back here again for 1 second. This is a screenshot that I took. Remember that I told you that that information is from the vectors. This formula comes out of the different aspects that are measured in the vulnerabilities. That gives you the information right in here. Now, something that I have to mention is that there are different common vulnerability scoring system, or CCVS. We have 3.1, and we also have another version of 2.0. Now, most vendors or and the current one is 3.1, but you may have a similar or perhaps a different score from 3.1 to 2.0. But even if it's different, it's not going to be that much of a difference, right? It's not that you're going to have a high vulnerability on 2.0 and then it's going to be a low on 3.1. That's not going to be the case. So, what does this mean? And this is what I wanted to bring over to you. So let me come over to this window. So if you go to any vulnerability and you hover over this, that's going to explain to you the formula to calculate the score, right? And something that you have to keep in mind, and before I get into this, is that the National Vulnerability Database uh, categorizes vulnerabilities in three sections. And let me bring it down here. Where is it? Okay, so we have the base metrics of the vulnerability. That's usually the number that you see right here. As you can see, it says a base score of 7.8. And then we also have a temporal uh, formulas and calculations. And those are things that are going to change in the vulnerabilities, right? And then we have base, temporal, and there's one more, and that is right here, environmental. So for specific and unique organizations, and the only way I see this is perhaps if you work in a government branch, like the DOJ or the DOD or one of these very specific, highly secure branches of the government, or maybe even in the private sector. Maybe you work in a very unique, maybe a nuclear medicine kind of thing, or a nuclear plant, or something like that, right? That you have to maybe create your own customized vulnerability scorings based on other factors outside the base factors. Then you would be able to calculate the vulnerabilities right here. As you could see, the National Vulnerability Database has a calculator for vulnerabilities. And depending on the different metrics options that you choose, the value of the vulnerability is going to change. And you can create the calculation for the base score, for the temporal, and the environmental score metric systems. As you could see, if I change this right here to adjacent network, this is going to change from 7.8 to 8, right? Or if I do, if I, the privilege is required, if I change this to none, it's going to increase because this vulnerability is not going to have, it's not going to require any special privileges to for the exploitation. So what I want to show you here is that in unique situations, you can adjust the vulnerabilities to your unique needs. You don't have to just rely on the base scoring system for that. Now, personally speaking, I have never worked in a location where I had to customize the vulnerabilities, right? All my IT experience of over 20 something years, I've always relied on the base score. Now, the base score, as I mentioned before, is not the final word. You cannot take this as the ultimate truth when it comes to vulnerabilities because you use this as a reference as part of your plan. That's what you should do at least. So let's go over this for 1 second. So when it comes to the base metrics, as you can see right here for three common vulnerability scoring system 3.1, we have AV. An AV means an attack vector. Is the attack vector local or remote? So let me bring this over here. Okay. This is not what I'm looking for. Where is that other tab? Oh, the calculator right here. So if you've noticed this, let's use this as an example. The attack vector in this case is network. So if I come here and look at the base score formula, right? So the attack vectors that we have are network, adjacent, local, and physical. So if you go to any vulnerabilities and you analyze the formula, it is going to tell you the attack vector in this case for this vulnerability is local, right? So you have to be in the network for that to happen. If I in right here, so if I do network, as you could see, it's going to increase because the value is going to change. Now, if we come over to the AC stands for attack complexity. So as you could see it right here, is the complexity for the attack low or now if we change this to high, you'll notice that the vulnerability score is going to get lower because you need to conduct a more sophisticated attack for that vulnerability to be exploited. But if it's low, it's going to increase the vulnerability. So then if we come down here and we go to, uh, we have a C, oh, we have PR privileges required, right? So if we come down here, you're going to notice that the privileges require, if you say none, the vulnerability is going to go higher, but if you say high privileges, it's going to go lower. So I'm not going to bore you with this because you get the point, right? So just find the description, and then you can see what that impact is, right? The confidentiality impact, integrity impact, and availability impact. All that is going to be listed down here: availability, integrity, confidentiality. So that's how vulnerabilities are being measured. So when you have a vulnerability management solution, and I have created, like, I believe, like 3 to 5 videos of different vulnerability solutions. They're all going to provide a score, right? And now you know what the score means and where the score comes from. Again, something that I have to mention: don't just rely on the vulnerability score uh, to address the vulnerability. Um, if you do that, it means that your organization needs to improve the vulnerability management solution, right? And every vulnerability management solution is going to be unique to each organization, but the score is something that you are going to keep in mind to take the necessary actions to address the vulnerability. So the takeaways from this video is this: use vulnerability scanning solutions, whichever one you would like to use, as long as it's a reliable solution, of course, and it gets the vulnerability scores from a reliable source. Number two, don't rely on simply on the scores to address vulnerabilities. And number three, understands that um, how you can uh, customize or understand how the vulnerabilities are, how the score is created, right? Because it may be that a system that you have in your network has a vulnerability, but because of the unique setup that you have in your organization, or because of the unique compensating controls that you have, right? So that may be more difficult for that vulnerability to be exploited, right? If you need like physical access to that box, like that's going to change the formula big time, versus like you can access this over the network. So now that you have seen this, I hope this information was useful to you. I'm going to create a new series on information security and best practices. I hope that that's also going to be useful to you. Again, if you liked this video, please just click on the like button. It's not going to take you much. Subscribe to my channel and leave a good comment. And I will talk to you on the next video.